Choosing an MOS in the Army, it seems pretty simple, but it's really not. You can dive into all the MOSs out there. There's over 200 jobs in the Army. Now, I want to first break it down to really two categories. When choosing an MOS in the Army, it's either you're going combat or combat support. Combat is only a few MOSs, and everything else surrounds that combat, called the combat support. Now, combat jobs, you can say it's your infantry, your engineers, not all engineers, but some engineers, your field artillery. Now, there's a lot of different reasons why you want a specific job or whatnot, but it boils down to two kinds of jobs: combat and combat support. First, you gotta ask yourself, what do you want to do in the Army? Now, every single job that you're gonna pick in the Army, you're gonna have to go to basic combat training. Teaches you how to be a soldier in the Army. Your MOS depends on what kind of training you're gonna go through. For example, if you go to, let's say, infantry, you're gonna go to what they call OSIT. Basically, one station unit training is you go to basic training, you graduate, and you stay in that company, that platoon. You just move on to the next phase, which is basically learning your craft. Now, for combat support mostly, what happens is it's broken down to two different training. So remember, OSIT is one station unit training, basic training all together package. That's why the training seems longer. Combat support, you'll have two breakdown of this training. You got the basic combat training and then your AIT, which is advanced individual training. That AIT is kind of like your college. Whatever job it is, you're gonna get certified for it. If you're a medic, you're gonna go to medic school. So that's how it breaks down depending on those two kinds of MOSs. To choose an MOS, a lot of time we just look at what we want to do in the Army, or sometimes it sounds cool. Yes, that could be helpful. However, I urge you to do this. These are different factors that you want to take in consideration when you're picking a job. Number one, density. We have in the Army what we call low density MOS. Those low density MOS is basically their smaller MOS. It's gonna matter later on, because right now, as you are inquiring and doing your research and joining the Army, you're really just looking at maybe the next 6 months to a year of your life. I urge you to look way past that. Ask your recruiter about it, show them this video, and give you a better understanding of the job. Because a lot of time we cut corners, man. When you go to a recruiter's office, you're like, yeah, I want to join. You go through the process, but then you fail to realize to look at different MOSs are available to you, and then by the time you get shown this or you're asking these questions, you're already at MEPS. It's too late by then. You won't have time to research. So do your research now first. When you look at the low density MOSs, it matters for promotion and how long or how slow you can get promoted. I'm gonna give you an example. So for example, you pick a job, let's say chaplain's assistant. Not everybody wants to be a chaplain assistant. That's one factor. The other factor is that there's not a whole lot of need of chaplains. And these chaplain assistants are typically assigned to a battalion. So which means if you look at different units in the Army, platoons, companies, battalions, brigades, they start at a battalion level. So which means across the Army, there's not a whole lot of them because the need for them is not so much. Now, if you look at the high density MOS, however, which means that MOS is needed in every platoon, every company, every battalion, and so on and so forth. It makes a big difference because the supply and demand, specifically the demand. So if you need that MOS in every single unit element in the Army, which means they need a lot of them, which means they're gonna promote a lot more. So instead of you getting promoted to sergeant in 4 years in the low density MOS, compared to the high density MOS, which you could probably get promoted to sergeant in as little as 2 years. That's the biggest thing you want to consider, regardless of how cool it may sound. To be honest with you, nobody thinks about making the Army as a career initially. Well, not nobody, but it's only a few. And most of them that thinks that, hey, I'm gonna do a lifer, do 20 years in the Army, they get out in their first term. So never ever lock yourself into that mindset. Just think about it first. Me, for example, I said I was gonna do my initial contract, get out of the army, and I'm still here 16 years later. The next thing you want to look at the job is your interest level for that specific job, or MOS. Can you see yourself doing it? It might be as simple as it sounds, but it's not really. For example, do you see yourself being a cop? Do you see yourself being a finance guy? Great. Because the fact of the matter is, you'll never really gonna know if you're gonna like this MOS. You're not, until you actually do it. You could say, oh, might be pretty cool to be a high-speed infantry dude, but is that something you want to do? Can you see yourself actually doing it and having fun? Can you value and excitement going to the field all the time, being in the front lines? And if not, that's okay. We have other jobs. Maybe you're better off as a combat engineer, paving the road for those infantry guys. Think about it. Here's another thing you want to consider. People want to do the job that they studied for, which is fine because at some point they were interested in it. If that's the case, then you're good. Charlie Mike. If you don't know what Charlie Mike is, means continue mission. Let's say somebody went to school for, let's say, mechanics. That's a good one. Let's say you into cars, you're building cars, you're fixing cars, you went to a trade school, became a mechanic, or whatever the case may be. And then you want to join the army. A lot of times I see, hey, I want to be a mechanic in the army. Okay, which is fine. But normally, if you have a great recruiter, they should be asking you, why do you want to be a mechanic in the army? And then if that answer is to get more certifications and more, I don't know, training, that's great. But here's what I suggest to you. If you already have the certifications and a know-how for mechanics, I suggest diversify a little bit. Hear me out on this one. Let's say you got years of experience as a mechanic and you already know a lot about it. Wouldn't you want to know a little bit more, or what most stock traders say, diversify your portfolio? Because sometimes when we get to that point of a specific profession that we're already peaked, what could training in the army possibly contribute as far as value proposition? You're already a mechanic, and then you're also a mechanic in the army. Great, you're probably the best mechanic in the army. But what does that do to you when you do get out? All you're gonna be doing is mechanic. So my suggestion is find another one that would be exciting as well, and you would like to know more. So by the time when you're done with your military service, you're kind of diversified a little bit. You are a great mechanic, but you're also great in medical. You're also certified EMT, because the only permanent thing in this world is change. I'm going to use my wife as an example. She went to school for dental hygiene. She graduated dental hygiene. She did dental hygiene for a number of years. After a few years, she hated dental hygiene. It hurts her back. She doesn't want to clean people's teeth anymore. And now she wants to do something else. But all her background, all her schooling is about dental hygiene. So she's stuck with that specific industry. And if that's okay with you, then you're great. Just Charlie Mike. But I'm just saying, look at other different interests that you might have and do it in the army. All right, last thing is that you also want to look at different enlistment terms, because each job have different enlistment terms, minimum enlistment terms to be exact. For example, if you want to sign up for, I don't know, 17 Charlie, I might be wrong here, but 17 Charlie is basically cyber or a hacker. There's a certain minimum requirement on there. I think it was like 5 years. I'm not sure. Put it in the comments below if that's the case. Big examples are intelligence, military intelligence. For not all of them, for the most part, that's a 5-year commitment. What if after your basic training, all that stuff, and you go to your first unit and you actually do your job? What if you hate the job? What if you want to change your job? You're stuck, man. You're stuck. You're stuck for the next at least 4 years. And being stuck in a job, you lose a lot of interest, and it's gonna put a bad taste in your mouth. At the end of the day, when everything is said and done, you're gonna get out of the army. Whether you retire, ETS, you're gonna get out. At one point in your life, you're gonna have to hang up that uniform, and then you're back being a civilian. Hopefully this video can help you out. That being said, you want to get promoted as fast as you can. Click right here. When you do get promoted fast, you want to know how it feels like. Click right here. Stay new, have that new mentality, absorb all the information, be a high-speed FNG so you can be better than the other guy or girl. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.